Hey, this is Shilpa Bharaskar here, the author of Home Your Quest. So, in the last few videos, I've been, looking at the survey that I conducted with my members and looking at the top questions that you've been asking me on, repertorization, rubric selection, repertory selection, finding the best remedies and everything related to that. And so today, one of the key questions that's come up that I would like to answer is how do you select the best rubrics? Now, there is tons of information on this particular aspect, what's the best way to look at rubrics. And there are three key things which, it boils down to. One is you have to choose the peculiars over the common. You have to choose the generals over the particulars, and you've got to pick, only the rubrics that represent the key aspect of the case. And in this case, less is more. So I always tell my students to restrict between 3 and 8 or 9 rubrics. That's the max you can go. Beyond that, it becomes too diluted, and less than 3, it becomes a bit incomplete. And I'll tell you why this is so, and I'll give you an example, a case example, to demonstrate what I'm saying here, because sometimes it can just seem all theory, and it's important that you understand things through case studies. And I love sharing case studies and showing you through that, because I think that's the best form of learning and also remembering what's going on here. So I have a case by Fatek, where it's a case of iritis here. And we have, he said a month back, a lady suffering from iritis consulted him. And she's been suffering from this condition for about 15 days. She had consulted 2 eye specialists who had given her streptomycin and some other medicines, but there has been no improvement. So she has redness, lacrimation, photophobia, but the most peculiar symptom was that she was better lying on the painful side, slightly pressing the eyeballs. And the pain was worse at night, especially between 3 and 6 a.m. And she has been getting these attacks every year between October and December. And this was the 3rd attack. So the first thing you have got to do is don't just start opening up your repertories and start putting in whatever you see here. There is a very important filtration process called case analysis, which has to happen between your case taking and your repertorization process. And when you have a case such as this with what you call as a physical symptoms, with a good location, we have some good sensations and really good modalities, you're looking at using a Bonninghausen approach here. So if you check out what are the, you break it down into all these components, because it's a complete symptom. So I've looked at, we have a location, which is the eye, or probably iris. We have a sensation, there is red, inflamed state, there is lacrimation, there is photophobia. And then we have modalities, better lying on the painful side, which pressing the eyeballs, worse at night, 3 to 6 a.m., and worse every year between October and December, right? Now, if you take them all together, you have about 7 rubrics that will come up. You'll have a location, you'll have 3 sensations, and again, 3 modalities, right? The question is, which are the best ones? Now, if you consider what we spoke earlier, peculiars over common. So in this case, the modalities, and in every complete symptom, the modalities are the red line of that case. You have to, they are, and especially if you have these really peculiar ones, they individualize your case. So you are going to take in these 3 modalities because they set this apart. This iritis, and individualize the iritis for us. Because if you check the other symptoms, the redness, the lacrimation, the photophobia, and yes, the eye is an important location, but again, these are all common symptoms, right? So the location is important in a way, but the three modalities are the best rubrics of this case. And the other aspect is we've got to generalize. So you can't repertorize looking at eye pains better by lying on the painful side, or eye pains worse at night, or worse in this, because then you're restricting. You've got to generalize. So we are going to look at these modalities and we are going to generalize them. That's the second most important thing. And we don't take all 7 rubrics. Remember, less is more. So you take only the most peculiar ones. Pick the 3 most peculiar ones or the 5 most peculiar ones, and in this case we have 3. And otherwise we are diluting a case if we go beyond that, especially when the case has these beautiful rubrics, right? So we're just going to look at 3 key modalities. And which are these? So better by pressure and lying on the painful side. It's worse at night, especially at 3 to 6. So it's worse 3 to 6 a.m. and it's aggravated every year between October and December. And this case was in India, so October and December are the cooler months of the year, right? So this is important, and this is what we're going to now go and put in our repertories. Now, the location is important, and if there are some other aspects that come up around the location, they're important, but we don't repertorize it. We can use it later on, and I'll show you how. Okay, so I'm going to go to Quest, and I've taken these 3 important rubrics here. The first thing I took was, so again, I've chosen from my library only Fatak's repertory and Metro America, because I just thought it was a case by Fatak. It's a great way to learn his repertory and see what's coming up. So that's what I did. So in Quest we have, so I took yearly aggravation, which is an important symptom. It's happening every year. And we have a beautiful rubric in Fatak which has periodicity, periodically, yearly aggravates. So that's the first one. The other rubric that we took was, the symptom was pressure ameliorates. So again, when you take pressure ameliorates, you will have a generalized different pressures ameliorates all over the body. However, you also have a very interesting rubric in Fatak, pressure ameliorates, lying on the painful or affected sides ameliorates, and that's exactly what we have in this case. Lying on the painful eyeball and pressing it a bit was ameliorating. So this is a beautiful rubric, and used it so many times, and this is perfect for this case, right? And then we have time. I took a general one first, time, night aggravate. So we have all the nightly aggravation, the remedies, the top remedies for night aggravations in here. And then I decided to take the timing. Now it's always tricky with timings because it's a bit patchy, spread all across the repertories. Different repertories have different ways. So I've taken time first 3 a.m. I wanted to check what are the best remedies for 3 a.m. aggravation. And then I took 6 a.m. aggravation. But unfortunately, I could not find a lot of rubrics for 6 a.m. So I just, let the 3 a.m. be, and we'll see, because it's a big enough rubric, big for Fatak in a way, right? And the top remedies that are coming up from all this different analysis from both the Metro America and the repertories is Rustox, Phosphorinum, Arsenicum, and Sepia. And Rustox leads the way. All right, so let's now go and repertorize it. So I took on the repertorization. I think I've done it, yes. So again, I've chosen Fatak's repertory. I've taken periodicity, yearly aggravates. Then I've taken pressure, ameliorates, lying on the painful or affected side. Then time modalities, again, 3 a.m. aggravation and nightly aggravation. And again, the Rustox comes up at the top, and then you have Arsenicum coming up as well. So now the question is, what do we do with the remaining things? Do we let them go? Say, for example, we have something called, that 6 a.m. aggravation. We want to check whether that's also part of Rustox, or Arsenicum. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a remedy analysis. I've chosen Rustox and Arsenicum, and in the remedy analysis, I've put in 6 a.m. And when I do that, and I use a contrasting feature where I want rubrics with arsenicum but do not have root stocks, and with root stocks do not have arsenicum. And I've checked in from all repertories in Mathematica here, and when I put in 6 a.m., you can see Roostocks has an aggravation on pain joints night 6 a.m. In Ken's repertory. Again, pain shoulders evening 6 a.m. evening to 6 a.m. So again, it's an interesting rubric there. Chills morning 6 to 10 a.m. So what you see is Roostocks, and then you have the PMs, which we don't want. So what you see is Roostocks dominates. Not for the eye, but as a general, you can see it has a 6 a.m. aggravation, which arsenicum doesn't really have. Arsenicum mostly covers the 6 p.m. part there. So that's interesting. The next one I wanted to check in was that the cooler months aggravate. So we don't have, October to December. It's a very specialized rubric, but I want to see the cold aggravation because that is important, because she gets it every year during the cooler months, which is October to December. And you take cold aggravation of the eye, you see, Roostocks comes up in majority of the rubrics with cold aggravation. Pain, air, cold aggravates. Pain, just cold aggravates. Sore, bruised, air, cold aggravates, and so on. So yes, arsenic comes up in some of the rubrics, but it's mostly Roostocks that's dominating the grid here. So that's one important thing that confirms things which we have not been able to repertorize, but we can just compare and contrast there. And obviously, if you go and check in Roostocks, say, look into Vertex, and then if you check very closely into the eye symptoms, let's look at that. There you go, pain behind eyes. You have profuse tears, pustular inflammation, saccular conjunctiva, photophobia, and iritis. So it has a very strong effect on the iritis as well. So that's what we have here. Fartek's book strongly recommend Roostocks. Let's look at what happened to the patient. So that's what happened. Fartek gave her Roostocks 200 QDS. She felt very much better in one day. So the same remedy was continued, but 3 times a day now for 3 days, and she became completely all right. So now let me show you something interesting. What would have happened, say, if we had, repertorized all rubrics, whatever they are, all those locations, all those sensations, common ones, everything. What would have happened if we had done that? So let me tell you what I did. I did exactly that. I did take all the rubrics. So I took basically, we had these main ones, the modalities that we have taken, but I've added there lacrimation, redness of, in general, because there are redness of the eyes. Then I've taken eyes as a location. I've taken light aggravation, iritis, inflammation, and so on. So apart from the major ones, the periodicity, the time aggravation, 3 a.m., the pressure of the affected parts, the Miller rates, and the in general night aggravates, I've taken all these other rubrics. And even in quest analysis, I've done that. So I've basically taken everything: eye, photophobia, redness, lacrimation, and then I've also taken in iris, and so on. All right. Now, in this particular case, it basically hasn't made a difference. So Roostocks and arsenicum still come up at the top. You've more remedies coming up here, and even in quest analysis, Roostocks and arsenicum, they are at the top. So in this specific repertorization, it hasn't made a difference. In some repertories, possibly because you've just used Fardex here, and that helped. If you've used the other repertories and other books, it would have diluted your case and changed the equation, and you would have had Roostocks or arsenicum or these top remedies lost. But it still makes a difference, because if you check something here, something very interesting has happened. So I'm going to show you the rubrics, the remedies that come up here after Roostocks and arsenicum. when you have the best rubrics taken, which are the key differentiating remedy rubrics taken in the case, look at what's coming up here. You have China, you have Soranum, you have silica, you have ammon carb, and so on, as the remedies that come up, in the other part of the repertorization table that follow these two. So these are very important remedies because they can be one of the second prescriptions if your first remedy works and then stagnates, or if your first remedy doesn't do the job that you wanted to do. So I always go back to my repertorization again and check what are the other things that are in the, what other remedies are coming up. Is there a complementary remedy? Is there a remedy that follows well? If Rostrox has done a job, how about an antisoric that comes up after? What other remedy can follow as a constitutional, and so on. So this is key information here. Do not lose this information because these remedies are covering some of the top key elements of your case, and that's critical. Now what happens when you just take all rubrics? Look at that. The remedies that follow are all different. You have sulfur coming up, you have calcarea, you have belladonna, you have murk, and they were nowhere in the picture in that other one. Even in the quest analysis, you see belladonna, sulfur, murk, they come up and push away those other remedies which are hidden. And why is that? Because these are like the top remedies for photophobia and redness and lacrimation and so on and so forth. They are those sort of remedies that have this as a state which is predominant in those remedies. And so what happens now is, when in this particular case, now we don't know how long Rostrox worked and what happened later on, but say if this were my case, if I had to find a remedy that follows well, and after Rostrox I wanted to look for a remedy that would come up as an antisoric, I would rather go and give a remedy like Soranum, because in my best rubrics, Soranum, a remedy, has come up as a key remedy which has periodicity, which has time aggravation at night in general, which has nightly aggravations. It doesn't cover the pressure ameliorates, but the Rostrox has done it for us. It's a chilly remedy and it's a great antisoric. Could have followed Rostrox very well here, right? And in this case, if I had dumped everything together, my mind would have sort of gone with sulfur, or something like belladonna or murk, or who knows, something, an antisoric like sulfur would have come up, or calcarb would have come up. And sulfur is a hot remedy. This person is chilly, and if he's chilly constitutionally as well, sulfur would not have done the job. So you see, Soranum is lost here somewhere, because Soranum was covering only the keynotes of the case. It wasn't covering all the other common symptoms, and that is the key. This is where you don't want your key elements and key remedies that are covering the top best rubrics to go away and to be lost in your grid. You want them to be there all the time, and that's the reason you have the best rubrics, and that's the reason this grid is so important. And you save it and you look at it again and come back to it, and this is basically the way to go and give the best for your patients, not just in that first consult and your first prescription, but even in the follow-ups. And keep on fine-tuning and keep on giving the best using our database, and that's the beauty of using the best rubrics. So hope that helps and hope that makes sense. And yeah, let's go and give the best for our patients this week. Take care, and I'll come back to you with another new episode, and with a new question, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.